Da, 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 da. I've already had my coffee. This is the 5-year club. It's video 5. Da, 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 da. See, the worse that I look, the smaller I need to make this window that shows my face. I mean, look, it's like I've showered already. Oh no, I haven't. I've showered already. Oh no, I haven't. Okay, so yeah, fifth video, and I wanted to do it this morning so that tonight I can exercise and not feel guilty because I've been getting enough exercise recently. Really like exercising and listening to books, which gives me more information and helps me accomplish what I want. I also want to look at some like animation stuff on the video editor I have so that I can make a cool intro animation on a weekend. I've already looked at some of that, but I haven't actually tried it yet. I haven't had a chance to sit down and actually animate some stuff. So that should be cool. Bring me back to my childhood when I did some of that. So first thing I wanted to do is I just wanted to give an overview of the topics I've covered so far. And I'm probably going to link back to those videos in the description of this one, just in case somebody finds this. I need to do better linking in general. Just in case somebody finds this video, doesn't know what's going on, and wants to catch themselves up. Yeah, you could just go to the channel and look backwards. But I need to be, careful about making sure that there's a structure in place that people can understand so that they know where to start, they know which video has the information they want, they know where to end, stuff like that. So the first video I made was just an introduction to this channel, why I am giving out financial advice, what's the backstory, things like that. Second video was the current state of retirement in America, how everyone is failing, and all those nice cars you see, and well, not all of them, but most of them, and all the outward wealth you see is usually backed by credit and usually backed by spending that is going to prevent people from retiring, and overwhelmingly, people will not have the funds they need to retire in the next 30 years. They already don't, and it's just going to get worse. The third and fourth videos I made covered the importance of net worth, and I made 2 videos about it because I felt really strongly that people, should watch both. And my cat just did something that didn't sound good. And yeah, so I felt really strongly that that topic needed a double treatment because I really want people to begin thinking about net worth and its implications in their financial life. Finally, I'm getting to the egg video. The egg is the big sum of money you're going to use to retire. I guess I shouldn't say money. It's the big pile of assets that you're going to use to retire. And that can include stocks and index funds, houses, equities, bonds, other debt instruments, whatever you want to call it. Big pile of assets. Gives off a cash flow, and then you can live off that cash flow without lifting a finger. All right. So, getting ahead of you. The first part of this will be a little more relevant later. But I just want to cover this math kind of section. I'm not going to dwell on it. I wanted to display the equations on your screen so that if you're a math nerd, you can pause the video, work this stuff out for yourself, play with it yourself. For most people, this is going to be too much detail. I totally get that. So the numbers that we have here are a growth rate. So first of all, what is this? This calculation, let's back up, is the calculation that's going to tell you what... Oh, I shouldn't do this. I should put this after the egg. Oh no, abort. We're just going to go directly to the egg calculation because this is actually something I should do afterwards. But if you want to, you can pause the video and check out the secrets. Okay, yep. All right, so again, you have a big pile of assets and you need to retire. The question I want to ask now and answer is, how much do you need to retire? What parameters are we going to use to determine how much you need when you retire, and how is that pile of assets going to act in your retirement? Are you going to become ever more wealthy in your retirement? Are you going to go broke after 10 years? Are you going to go broke after 20 years? How do you know? The way this works, it's pretty simple. The primary thing we want to look at is a very simple inequality that just says the inflation rate, which is historically 3%, 3.2%. A lot of people it's been more like 2% or closer to 0 recently, but that could definitely change. So we just say the inflation rate, which is the inflation caused by the government printing money and other things, plus the withdrawal rate, which is the percentage of your egg that you need to spend every year to continue living, pay for food, pay for groceries. And this is constant across time. So it will adjust up with inflation because of the way, that's the weird, blah, blah. Okay. Back up. Inflation rate, 3%, plus the withdrawal rate, which is simply the percentage of your nest egg that you are spending on food and stuff, needs to be less than the egg's growth rate. Okay? So, if your egg was just nothing but the S&P 500 index fund, an S&P 500 index fund, I should say. There's more than one, but they all should act about the same. Then you're good, because historically speaking, the return on that's about 9%. So 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 is less than 9. Yay! You can retire indefinitely, invest in the S&P 500 if you are only spending like 4%. And inflation doesn't go crazy for a long time. So, cool. Now we know the parameters. Okay, so now we know this is a successful scenario, and we want to ask, okay, what does your withdrawal rate need to be? What's it going to cost you for food and shelter and everything else? Well, let's take a simple scenario. Let's take the scenario where you spend $2,500 a month. So I'm going to say $2,500, and then I'm going to say 12 months in a year, right? And then I'm going to say that this is 4% of something, okay? So what I'm going to need to do now is I'm going to need to divide by 0.04, because this is 4% of the size of my nest egg, and that will give me the size that my nest egg needs to be. So it needs to be $750,000. A shortcut to getting this answer is dividing by 0.04 is the same as multiplying times 25. In this first term, your monthly spending times 12, that's just your annual spending, right? So let's see, that's going to be about $5,000. It's going to be about $30,000. Yep, 30, 1, 2, 3, $750,000. We get the same thing. So, yeah, whatever you can spend in a year and still live, multiply that times 25. When you reach that number, you can retire. This has some interesting implications. Number one, if you can figure out clever ways to reduce your fixed costs by outright purchasing a cheap property in Nevada that you plan to live in, so that your monthly housing expenses and therefore annual housing expenses are really low, then you might be able to drop this from $30,000 to $22,000. And now you only need 550 instead of 750. If you can, I don't know, volunteer for an organization that gives you a bunch of free food, then this drops from $22,000 to let's see, 22 minus 6 is going to be 16. You only need 400,000. So now we're almost cut in half from that initial nest egg goal that we needed. Spending changes have a huge impact on your nest egg. Now, obviously, you can't volunteer for a food bank and eat their food indefinitely. Eventually, you'll get old and sick, and you don't want to be depending on the charity of a food bank for your food. But if your plan was to stop working at a job and begin working on a business while doing that only for a few years, and then build up the nest egg more from your business income until it throws off enough cash to also support food, that's not a bad idea. What I have in here, in this calculation, is some assumptions. So I introduce the concept of real rates. So what I mean when I say real rates are rates that are adjusted for inflation. And the way I do that is I take a growth rate of money, and I said, the S&P's average is 9%, so I'm going to assume 8% to be conservative in the future. And I'm going to make that a real growth by subtracting inflation from it. So instead of growing by 8% per year, I assume that it grows by 5% per year. I do this because 3 of those percentage points on the 8% growth rate are going to be absorbed by the 3% inflation rate. In other words, yeah, your investment grew by 8% in terms of like actual dollar count, but because the milk and bread that you would buy with those dollars is now more expensive, in terms of, how much additional milk you could buy every year, it really only grew by 5%. When I say real withdrawal rate, this is also, because this growth rate accounts for inflation, this withdrawal rate is also going to account for inflation. So when I say you're withdrawing 4% of the nest egg every year, you're withdrawing 4% of a nest egg upward adjusted by 3% every year. And therefore, you can have the same milk every year, and your cost and your quality of life is not going to go down. And this multiple of annual spending, again, that's just 1% divided by 4%. So if you said this was 3%, this is an important point. If you said that you're only going to need to withdraw 3% of your nest egg instead of 4%, which is a 25% spending decrease. So it's a big difference. But that also, when you say I can only withdraw 3%, what you're saying is I don't expect my growth rate to be this high. So I don't think the market's going to return as much. And if the market's not returning as much, then your nest egg has to get bigger. So instead of being 25 times annual spending, which is 1 divided by 4%, it needs to be 1 divided by 3%, which is more like 33 times annual spending. And so instead of needing 750,000 like we had before, you're going to need 30,000 times 33, which is going to be like 900 something, right? Is that going to be around $1 million? 990,000? Yes, needs one more zero. 990,000. Yeah, you need more like $1 million. So if the market doesn't do well, or if you don't expect the market to do well, you're going to need to save a whole lot more money to retire. Sad fact. And it's going to be hard to get there. So we want to hope the market does well. All right. When this inequality is met, the inflation rate plus the withdrawal rate is less than the egg growth rate, this curve will go up. This curve represents the size of the nest egg. You start out at 100%, so that's 100% of whatever the minimum was you needed to retire. And over time, we see that it only increases. Because it increases at a real growth rate that's already adjusted for inflation, this is actual real dollars extra that you have. Your nest egg actually grows in size, which means the older you get into your retirement, the more generous you can be with charitable giving, the more money you'll have to take care of medical expenses, and the more you'll have to spend on nice vacations with your family. We're going to play with these numbers some. So, real withdrawal rate is 3%, is 4%. Let's say it's only 3% because your nest egg is so big that you don't need to live on as much of it. So more of it can stay invested over time. Why does it include that now? Okay, so we're ending this 30-year retirement period with say 220% maybe. And then under the 4% scenario, we end with only about 150%. So you obviously end up with more money if you withdraw less in retirement, right? And, this real growth rate, if we say the real growth rate is only 4% instead of 5%, see, now your nest egg is going to drop in value. Because the real growth rate here is equal to the withdrawal rate, the drop is relatively, this looks dramatic, but realize you're going from 100% of the nest egg to 92% over 30 years. So it's actually, it's losing about 10% of its value over 30 years. So you still die with a good chunk of money yet left, but the entire time you were able to withdraw that 4% that you needed to live that was inflation adjusted. So this scenario where the growth rate goes down is maybe not as good as a scenario where you build up more money, but it's not terrible. And many people are in this boat where they have enough to retire, but the retirement plan doesn't let them live absolutely forever. If we say the real growth rate is only, say, 3.5% instead of 4%, well, now, okay, your nest egg has been depleted by more like 30% instead of 10%. If we drop this down to 3%, then the nest egg has dropped half in value by the time that I guess presumably you're dead. This is about age 90 if you're retiring at age 60 over here. But, I want to be careful here because a lot of times this 4% spending level in retirement, it's not going to be constant because you need more medical attention in these later years from 70, 75, 80, 85, 90. And so this drop is actually conservative. This drop would actually be more if your medical expenses are causing you to spend beyond the 4% of withdrawal rate that this model assumes. Every year we withdraw 4% of our initial nest egg value. The remainder of the nest egg is invested so that it gets a real return of at least 5% per year. In this way, our investment gains pay for our lifestyle indefinitely, and when we die, we leave an inheritance or give generously to a cause. If the investment rate is not high enough, then the nest egg can be depleted over time. Yep, nest egg is getting depleted because the rate's not high, the return rate's not high enough. If the withdrawal rate is too high, the nest egg can be depleted. So that's just the opposite scenario where I can bump this back up to 5%, and then let's say it's 6% is what we need to withdraw because we just have a lot of spending. Again, we go down because the inequality is not met. All right, that is it for the nest egg video. This is what determines the size of the egg that you need to be financially independent. And it can get a little bit more complicated if we begin to model this withdrawal rate differently, if we begin to model the growth rate differently by changing it every year using statistics and random variables so that the average return rate is 5%, but the annual return rate every single year of that 30 years is probably not going to be 5%. It's going to go up and down, but it's going to average out to 5%. Same thing with the withdrawal rate. We could model kind of random increases and decreases in that withdrawal rate. We can model behavior changes where we see during years where the real growth rate is lower than 5%, we tighten the belt, and that would increase our chances of success. I'll cover some of these models later. I don't think it's actually that important to cover them now because they tell you the same information. They just tell you, oh, that with this percentage and this percentage, you have a 90% chance of success. Whereas this is more black and white. It just says if you're above 0, it's 100% chance of success. Reality, nothing's 100% chance of success, except taxes and death. Ha ha ha. Okay. But before that, I want to cover how we're going to build the egg, how we're going to think about building the egg. But I'm not going to do that in this video because it would be way too long. I hope all that was helpful. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comment section. Please like my video. Please subscribe to my channel. Please go eat ice cream and yes, you're lactose intolerant, and then go eat some ice cream that doesn't have lactose. Gelato, that still has lactose. Okay. Subscribe. Wait, did I already say that? Oh, crap. Okay, have a good... what day is it? Friday? Ooh, it's Friday. Yeah, have a good Friday. I'm going to go take a shower and get ready for work. Goodbye.